on the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our family and our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again.
Welcome to our monthly AAA podcast, Affinity, Allie, and Annette on the road to good storytelling with your hosts, Allie Spooner and Annette Mori.
Hi, I'm Allie Spooner. Welcome and thanks for joining us today. With over 30 titles with Affinity, I'll claim to be a serial writer. I simply have a hard time saying goodbye to characters. I write primarily Southern-based stories, but in genres from paranormal to mystery and intrigue. I hope you will enjoy our road trips and meet some authors new to you.
And I'm Annette Mori with Affinity Rainbow Publications. I'm pretty sure I've settled into a brand that includes quirky, unconventional style of writing, which undoubtedly gives my publisher fits. After 30 published novels, 31 is coming out pretty soon. I still feel like I have a lot to learn from others, and I hope that some of our guests will help illuminate me and other folks out there. I've been very fortunate to have a small but very loyal reader base and surprising recognition on some of my books.
All right, so each month we'll invite a special guest to join us as we discuss various topics of interest to writers and readers. We'll invite our guests various topics. We'll invite our guests to do a short reading and then follow with questions on featured topic, while encourage them to do at least one giveaway to our audience.
And this month we will be talking Southern heritage, and I can't wait to get into it. I always say I wish I'd been born in the South because y'all have the best sayings. We'll talk about books set in the South and why they always seem to have a fair amount of humor and food. The food, yeah. We'll get into the topic of moonshine because Allie's book that's coming out very soon, whiskey. I can't remember the title. Allie, what whiskey?
Holy Water and Whiskey Scars.
Holy Water and Whiskey Scars. It's a great book. I got a chance to read it, which was probably in a moonshine. It's about moonshine. There's a topic there, and it was probably invented in the South, wasn't it? Was it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Plus, we'll have readings from not one, but two Southern authors today. So thus, you see our wonderful McGee Mathews is down there in the screen, and she is going to be doing a reading from one of her books and perhaps talk about some Southern sayings as well.
So following our podcast today, we'll upload a newly created YouTube channel and hope you consider subscribing so you never miss a podcast.
So once again, our special guest is McGee Mathews, who has written several books set in the South, including a historical novel. She has a special brand of humor, and it always seems to find its way into the pages of her books. So they're absolutely hysterical. I love McGee's books. McGee won the 2019 Lesbic Bard Awards for Excellence in Writing and Storytelling in the category of New Author for her novel Moving Violations. Excellent book, very funny. Her second book, Exceeding Expectations, part of the Ladies of the Diamond Lake series, was also self-published before she signed with Sapphire Books. She's a member of the Golden Crowd Literary Society, Rainbow Romance Writers, and formerly the Romance Writers of America. McGee finds inspiration for her historical characters in her lifelong hobby of genealogy. She comes from a long line of potato farmers and Quakers. 400 years ago, her wife's ancestors owned a fiefdom McGee's family worked on in northern England. Interesting. This annoys her to no end. She maintains that she is not a Chihuahua and families, not bloodlines, are the most important. For her contemporary works, she is drawn to blue-collar gals with sass, definitely, often tapping into her experiences playing bass guitar in a rock band for 20 years. An Army brat, McGee was predominantly raised in Garden City, Michigan, a Jill of all trades, master of none. McGee has a BS in biology from Western Michigan University and has worked in numerous underpaid, overworked positions, including automotive engineering, facilities maintenance, and teaching chemistry. She currently writes full-time. McGee and her wife of over 26 years raised 3 children on a farm in South Carolina. She has retired from chasing goats, but still enjoys rural life. She counts the days until her wife can retire so they can begin their travels as RV nomads. Yes, yes, yes. And they can join us, my wife and I.
Sounds pretty heavenly. So, McGee, if you're ready, without further ado, you're on. Take it away.
All right. Well, thanks for having me to come on today. We've been getting a few black eyes in the South lately, so we kind of say, if we all just leave, it's good for us, but it isn't so good for the guys you leave behind. So sometimes you got to pick up the stick and poke back. So anyways, this is a story about a character who has actually done that. She's left the South and she's coming to visit home. So it's called You Can't Outrun Your Roots, and it's true. My dear readers, does anyone else hate their hometown? Tomorrow I'm headed to South Carolina for my father's funeral. His death was expected, and to be honest, I dread the next week's. I apologize in advance, but there will be a delay before my next post. Aside from the small minds and narrow view of the world, my life was so very boring before taking flight into the best city in the USA, Washington, D.C. My hometown is like many others in the South. There are 3 places to eat if you include the Shaved Ice Hut and the store that sells fishing gear, live bait, and sandwiches. A worm deli. The scent of topsoil and salami blended the air. It's as delightful as it sounds. Every small town has limited shopping and a movie theater with 1 screen and a single stoplight. We all know the real reason we hate our hometowns is the people. Well, usually one specific person. In my case, it's my mortal enemy since the 1st grade, Jimmy, the grandson of the town founder. Never fear, my wicked sense of humor and comedic timing are enough to keep the mental midget at bay. It occurs to me that the deep down reason I hate my hometown isn't about the person I despised, it's about the one that I adored. For me, it was Gloria, my first girlfriend. We'd been best friends, the kind of friend who becomes your first lover. Then I gave her the Judas treatment. I feel bad about that. I never apologized, but there's some transgression so egregious, you're ashamed to ask forgiveness. The memory of that was like a tattoo of your ex's name on your shoulder. Even if you covered up, you know it's still there, and so does she. Anna Mae stopped typing. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She chewed the inside of her cheek. The town of Chicora Point, South Carolina, was a painful reminder of the terrible person she had been. It was her own fault that she left the town brokenhearted. Those other observations were true, but she wasn't quite ready to post about Gloria to the world. Anna Mae scrolled up to the paragraph about the relationship and hit delete. How did Gloria feel about their shared past? Maybe she didn't think about it at all. Gloria Sinclair Montgomery Robinson folded the newspaper open to the obituary section and read the announcement of the death of Mr. Ellison Walker, age 93, lifetime resident of Chicora Point, South Carolina. She would attend the funeral, of course, but what his daughter, Anna Mae? Her mind swirled around the memories from high school until the beep on her phone signaled time to deliver the produce for the food bank. At the fruit stand, she put the truck in park and got out. She tugged her coveralls into place, the denim soft from many trips through the laundry. Her knee crackled when she stepped inside the back door. The young woman sitting near the front counter looked up from her notebook. Good morning, Mom. I've got an idea for a new backup system, but it won't need a ton of batteries. Jasmine pushed a pencil behind her ear, her dark hair forming a curly cloud around her head due to the humidity. Her farmer's tan darkened from her usual copper skin to sienna. What's wrong with the generators? Gloria pulled her long hair together and slid on the hairband from her wrist. Well, nothing, except we got to keep filling them, and they're noisy. Gloria held up her fingers to count. And they smell awful, and the diesel fuel goes bad. Yeah, especially the biodiesel. I think it's the organics. I would bet. Let me look and see if there's any additives to increase the shelf life. Stop, my young Einstein. I have to get to the food bank before 9 or I'll miss the opening. Gloria kissed the top of Jasmine's head. Love you. See you this afternoon. Piney Grove African Methodist Episcopal Church provided space for volunteers to disperse food. The church itself was in the area described by old white people as the black neighborhood. Every southern town had a black person or two they tolerated in their village proper, usually a hairdresser or a cook. In this case, it was a gay hairdresser by the name of Damian Carter. His father was a preacher, and together they worked to care for their community. Putting the truck in park, Gloria called out, Hey, Miss Gloria, good morning. Damien's shirt was darker under the armpits as the heat radiated off the pavement. Did you bring me any comb? Of course. She held up the mason jar with the wax surrounded by golden honey. Just for you. Damien inspected the sticker-covered rear window of the truck. He tapped right between the bright neon pride emblem and the Human Rights Campaign decal. People still putting stuff on your truck? This picture of the family being chased by a dinosaur, that's new. Gloria nodded. Yeah, it may be a statement about traditional families or more likely just random foolishness. Either way, it's growing on me. It's better than the Hello Kitty. True. By the way, I just got off the phone with Daddy. He said Mr. Walker died and Anna Mae's coming home for the funeral. You going to get up with her? I don't know. Gloria paused. I didn't realize you two were still close. Oh, honey. I hadn't spoken to her in years until her mama gave me her number when we were putting the addition on the church. She might not be a Southern girl anymore, but her pocketbook remembers where she came from.
Very good.
What a
you.
great book. Yeah, I loved
Yes.
reading every minute of it.
All right. And Allie, are you ready for your reading?
I am. I'm reading today from my new book that will be out June 1st. It's called Holy Water and Whiskey Scars. Some topics that are a little near and dear to my heart. I hope you will enjoy it. And I'm reading a short scene from chapter 2 in the book. And here we go. Faith cleaned the kitchen and booted up a computer. She sipped coffee and stared at the blinking cursor. The words that generally flowed from her fingertips had grown silent. Faith picked up her coffee, walked back to the porch, and gazed at the wooden building with flakes of white paint beginning to peel. The fog had burned off with the rising sun, and her thoughts drifted back to her grandfather. She knew that her grandfather had provided groceries and needed staples for many of the families in his congregation, but was clueless how he could afford to offer them. The parishioners tithed what they could, which was very little, but he would make deliveries to needy families every few weeks. One night, just a few days before he passed away, he revealed a secret to Faith. Her grandfather stood up from the table and offered her a hand. There's something I need to show you. He led her into the pantry, filled with canned goods given to him, and he moved a wooden box that was used to store onions or potatoes. Faith remembered seeing a small metal ring attached to the floor. She had seen it hundreds of times as she helped clean the pantry, but had assumed it was some form of an anchor, and never questioned its presence. I need you to pull that up for me. Faith had looked at him with a frown of confusion, but pulled on the ring. She was surprised when a section of the floor revealed a door and steps leading into a carved-out room. He climbed down the steps and flicked a light switch that showed much more than a root cellar. What on earth? Faith asked. It's a long story, but one you should know. He motioned around the room and the tunnel leading from it. Originally, this house and the church were part of the Underground Railroad. The home's inhabitants and the preacher sheltered individuals fleeing slavery while heading north to freedom. He started to walk through the tunnel. This leads under the yard a short distance to the church and a similar room hidden there. When I discovered this, I began using it for a different purpose. He pushed the door open and flipped the light switch. Faith gasped when the illuminated room revealed a moonshine still. She looked between the copper still on her grandfather's face with disbelief. I'm afraid I don't understand. Come sit with me and I'll tell you the story. He walked over to 2 chairs and eased himself into one and waited for Faith to sit next to him. When Faith sat, she looked up at him. I think I'm ready for this. You know, we live in a poor economic community with very little help from the government. Most families here wouldn't have food on their tables if they didn't grow, hunt, or catch it. The farmers grew excellent produce, fruits, and berries, but the large farms made the market prices drop, and the cost of gas to deliver to cities wiped out potential profits. So it was easier to grow what you needed to eat, and barter the rest for goods and services. But how does that explain a moonshine still? Faith stammered. Logan's father, Curtis, has been a faithful deacon in my church for years. One night after a service, I told him about the church's secret and the underground tunnel and rooms. We had been lamenting the despair of our community for months, trying to determine a way to help our community. Faith was beginning to piece the puzzle together, but patiently waited for her grandfather to continue. Curtis's grandfather was a legendary moonshiner during Prohibition and developed highly prized recipes that sold well in the mountains and surrounding cities. After his passing, the family business died off despite a steady request for the shine. Curtis's father was leery of going to jail and didn't feel the profits were worth the risk. Faith could see a sparkle of excitement in his eyes that had been absent for months during his illness. She was about to ask a question when he resumed his story. Curtis and I devised a plan to rebuild his grandfather's still and business and call it Holy Water. We studied his journals and rebuilt the still here and began experimenting. It wasn't an immediate success, but we learned the stilling basics within a few months. Once we began to sell the product, we used the profits to purchase the needed goods for the community. That's how you were able to help so many families in the community, Faith asked. He nodded, until I got sick. I would cook the mash and Curtis made the runs to deliver the product. He smiled at Faith. I know you and Logan have remained friends from childhood, and she has developed her father's extraordinary driving skills. My time is running short, but the needs of this community remain. Faith's eyes grew wide. Do you want me to become a moonshiner? Curtis isn't getting any younger either, but he has the skills to teach you how to cook. He believes Logan would more than fill the need for a runner to make deliveries. We want you to continue the Holy Water legacy and support the community. Without it, our tiny community will wither and die. He sighed deeply. I know it's a lot to ask of you, but this is my home as it is yours. The search for a new pastor has been fruitless, so when I'm gone, the church will be abandoned. She could hear the despair in his voice as he spoke. Moonshine was still illegal, and they could face jail time if caught. Have you ever escaped detection? How have you escaped detection all these years? We never became greedy. We cooked twice a month, generated enough profit to purchase the items in the community needed. We could have sold so much more, but it could have jeopardized our freedom. Curtis had a few close calls during deliveries, but the church has never come under suspicion. It sounds like a brilliant plan. Do you think I can learn to cook the mash? I know you can if you're willing to take the risk. Curtis can teach you, and you will have my journals to use as a resource. Does the community know where the money comes from? I'm sure they have their suspicions, but would never question our generosity. You mentioned access from inside the church? He smiled and nodded. A similar bolt and door beneath my desk. I rarely used it, so it remained hidden by an area rug. Incredible, Faith stated. I would never have thought all this was here in my wildest dreams. Her smile broadened. Did Gran know? Of course. Your Gran was a tremendous help in purchasing supplies. She would go to town twice a month to buy her jars, yeast, sugar, and other items. If she were ever questioned, she would say that the ladies of the church were busy canning vegetables, making jelly, or fresh bread. It was very believable, as she often organized these events for the church. Faith saw him grimace. It's time for more medication, isn't it? Yes, I need to talk to you about this. Curtis and Logan will have a similar conversation today and come out to discuss the plan after dinner. He stood and left the room. Faith took a final look at the still and turned off the light before closing the door behind her. She followed her grandfather back into the pantry and concealed the door while he took his medicine. I need to lay down for a bit if you don't mind. Not at all. How about some grilled cheese sandwiches for supper? I know you like them, and they seem to sit well in your stomach. That would be perfect. He walked to a bookshelf in his office and pulled down a book. Look through this if you want. It's our journal from day one. It shows a list of supplies, recipes, and other information that may be of help. Thanks, she answered and carried the book to the kitchen table. Moonshine, she whispered. and shook her head with a soft laugh. Faith prepared some cookies and a pot of coffee for the meeting. She welcomed Logan and her father into the house. Did you have a clue? She whispered to Logan. Not even the faintest, Logan answered. It's such a wild idea. I would have never guessed. The four sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and munching on cookies. Curtis looked at Faith. I would bet you were as shocked as Logan was today. Faith nodded. I never had a clue. She fidgeted with her napkin. I wondered where the money came for all the goods given to the families, but would have never guessed it was from holy water. That was your grandfather's idea. It fits the bill perfectly. I'm just thankful we never got stopped for inspection. That would definitely not pass for holy water. Curtis chuckled. Faith looked at Logan. Can we do this? Logan shrugged. I don't see why not. It's kind of a screwed up version of Robin Hood. I'm game if you are. I can't imagine how a community would survive without the extra help. Faith saw the worry in her grandfather's eyes. When can we get started? Saturday night, unless y'all have other plans, Curtis said. We do now, Logan answered. I'll pick up the supplies we need and we'll start by showing you how to make the mash. We can cook and plan a delivery when the fermentation is complete. Faith and Logan proved to be quick studies and quickly learned the process of distilling and packaging the product. After their first batch was cooked, Curtis loaded his truck and took Logan along for the first delivery. It was an uneventful run, but Logan was amazed at how much people would pay for holy water. Was it ever tempting to cook more to make more money? We were adamant about sticking to only what we needed to generate revenue to supply the community. Faith's grandfather would see it as a sin if we produce for pure profit. Curtis laughed. He thought the Lord would forgive us if we used the money to help his flock survive. We only kept what we needed to keep us in supplies and gas for the deliveries. That was how the holy water legacy continued after her grandfather's death. Faith and Logan had filled their father's shoes and continued to support the struggling community. The first time she and Logan made deliveries, relieved adults welcomed them into our homes. Many were surprised the deliveries continued, but they were thankful for the assistance. We weren't sure how we would survive without your grandfather, Minnie Smiling Face told them. We will do our best to do what we can, Faith assured him.
That's great.
It is great. What a great story.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
a fun.
Yeah. So, McGee, I remember when you did that fun project where you recorded Southern sayings.
Mhm.
Can you share some of your favorites? And Allie, I'm going to ask you the same question because I know you have some favorite Southern sayings as well.
Well, I use more than I admit to. When we first moved here, Chris worked at the BMW plant with a bunch of Germans, and I worked at the Lowe's hardware with all the people from Pickens. So I came home from work with an accent one night, said, "It's coming up a cloud." And she said, "What?" I said, "It's fixing to rain." She's like, "Oh, you have lost the bet. You've got the accent first." And I said, "That's not fair." Probably the funniest one to me is "butter my butt and call me a biscuit," because I don't really know the context of what that's. Is that mean you're surprised? I really don't know what that means. Although our 30 years here, a lot of people say "bless your heart's" kind of like a negative thing, but it's kind of a teeter-totter thing. Sometimes it really just does mean a nice thing to somebody, when they're trying to, come. So it really isn't as hostile as some people probably would say that. But what about you, Allie?
Yeah, I agree. Bless your heart, how nice is all in context. It can mean truly what it says, or if you're, being sarcastic and in a good Southern woman polite way, you're telling them to F off. So it's
I always thought it was like condescending or something. Bless your heart.
Yeah, but you can say anything ugly about somebody. See, there's another one. Saying something ugly about somebody, as long as you follow it with "bless his heart." So he's as dumb as a stump. Bless his heart.
Bless his heart. Yeah. Fixing is one of my favorites. It's horrible in my daytime career. I find myself writing stuff, and it's like, no. You got to take stuff like that. I find that, writing Southern, sometimes we leave out words just because we know they're implied,
Mhm.
so we'll cut stuff short and, do different things. I had to laugh when I saw uh, McGee's map and her signs of her churches there. One thing, that always hits me in the South, if you're, from outside the Mason-Dixon line, don't ever ask a Southern person for directions, because they're going to tell you to go by the AMA church, take a left there, go on down to the oak tree and take a right, go on past the red barn and then
Yep.
take a left. And God knows you better not paint that barn anything other than the red.
Right. Well, what's even better is, remember where the Umbro place used to be? You make a left by the Dixie Hardware used to be, and people are like,
I've never been here. What do you mean?
right? But that's how we give direction. I do it too now. I'm like, I thought it was crazy.
Grandpa's fruit stand. Yep. All those good things. So, we have so many different things, to be sarcastic, and, one crayon that's not the sharpest in the box, and different things, or the brightest in the box, or the sharpest knife in the drawer, different things like that we use. Most of it in jest. Some of it can be serious, but mostly.
Well, every town you pull into back in the day, not as much now, but they all have a sign that points to where all the churches are, and the population might be 800. And there's 9 churches. So that's the part that I always found kind of amazing. And a friend of mine who is from up the road a bit said, I want you to write a little short story for me, and she said, you got to put in my church sign. So that was kind of the nugget that became, you can't outrun your roots, was her challenge for that short story. So
well, in those small towns, you can always find a church and a bar.
Yes.
Church and a bar. You might not find anything else, but you can always find a church and a bar.
Mm-hmm. And usually a very small hole in the wall diner. That's going to be your main place to eat in a small town, and that's some of the best cooking. Yeah, that's some of the best cooking you ever know, and you can guarantee whoever works it has all the 411 on all the people in the community.
Right.
Everybody goes and listens.
That's where all the gossip is. That's where all the town happenings.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, McGee, are all your books set in the South?
No, and most of the ones I'm working on are kind of my historical Civil War one was set in Kentucky, because I just love Kentucky, and of course this Ellie knows she's got them dogs going to. The one character is a moonshiner, and of course NASCAR started from the guys driving through the backwoods, and my books do have a thread where if you go back long enough, they all are related. I've got different family trees for them all and stuff because it amuses me mostly. But
so you don't consider Kentucky the South?
I do.
Okay.
I do. So those are the two that are those are the two that are in the South, and then the other ones are written in Michigan just because
Michigan.
I grew up there, and that's where most of my hijinks took place. So most of my stories from back in the day, suit more of a northern location than a southern location, just because you die in the South if you crawled in the woods at night with the snakes and all.
And Allie, a lot of your books are in the South, but not all, right?
Pretty much the majority of them. I do have some in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. A couple in Texas, but primarily the South because I'm Southern born and bred. That's what I know the best.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite genre or subgenre? I mean, I guess sapphic books or women loving women or whatever lesbic or whatever you want to call it is a genre. But within that, there's also these subgenres. What's your favorite?
McGee, you want to go first?
Oh yeah, I kind of write what I feel like writing. It seems like I really am a diehard romantic at heart, and so all of them end up having a romance in there somehow or other, even if it's pretty dark. So I would say I kind of do mashup stuff, though. I don't really do a clear line of romance. There's always some other hot mess going on in there.
Yeah, I used to think that mine was paranormal. That was something that was fun to write. You could create your own world basically. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten more family based.
Yeah.
There's still some romances, but to me, the intimacy and the love of families is something that's been very important for me.
Mhm.
And so I find myself writing more and more in those areas.
Mhm.
I love your paranormal stuff, though. Gotta
Yeah.
say, I do
Yeah.
love that.
My wife is like your number one fan, Ellie. She's read all of your stuff. She's always telling me about, oh, did you read this? I'm like, well, it's in my Kindle. She's like, what? Why don't you read? I'm like, I just haven't got time.
Yeah, I understand.
Yep.
Hmm.
Character driven or plot driven? Or event
Character for sure for me. I think up like kind of a funny scenario, like moving violations was actually based on a nugget of a true story from when I played softball, and we had a sharpshooter cop that was on our team, and she let loose this ball and about broke this girl's ankle at first base. And so and somebody on the bench says, gosh, I hope she shoots better than she throws. And we all were like, don't make her mad, So, but anyway, it was kind of just, so what would happen if, and what would happen if, and once I kind of do that, the characters take on their own life, and you kind of set up, oh, I want her to be like this, I want to be like that, and pretty soon they're waking you up in the middle of the night, this is what you got to say, and
Yeah.
I lose control of the characters, and they run me into the weeds all the time.
Absolutely. Definitely character based here. I write what they, basically inform me what they want us to read. They, tell me where I need to go. I'm definitely not a plotter. I may start out with some general ideas of where I want to go, but the character may take me totally different direction, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, you both amaze me that you're pantsters.
Yeah.
Because I get into a corner in a hot minute, and I got no idea how to get. So I find myself making, there's not a real detailed outline, but I've got little sticky notes of this got to happen here and this has got to happen there. And here's where we're headed at the end, or otherwise I'll just end up with a whole, yeah, I don't really know.
I just call up Allie and say, Allie,
Yeah.
get stuck, help. She always helps me paint myself out of that corner.
we do that a lot. We share stuff, especially when we get stuck, like, okay, where should I go next? And we've been really good about working well together, and I think it's benefited both of us.
Mhm.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, your combined writing that you do, and that feedback and stuff, I think is so important in a occupation, if you will, or hobby, whichever you consider it, where you're just by yourself a lot, and having that touchstone to say, I know you think that's a great idea.
So, McGee, you mentioned that pretty much all of your books have some kind of romance element to them, right?
Mhm.
And Allie, yours do too, right? You haven't ever written a book that doesn't have some kind of romance to it,
No,
right?
There's always some are more so than others, but there's always going to be some little thread of romance in a story.
Right. Because romance is queen. We all know that, right?
Amen.
But given that they're going to have some kind of romance element, are you a fade to black or doors wide open, or have you done both?
I have certainly done both. I've had a few that were pretty steamy, and the Venus Rising books, I think were probably my most erotic stories. And again, as I've grown into my writing and grown older, I mean, it's a struggle sometimes to be creative in lesbian sex. I mean, there's only so much you can do. And I feel like I'm talking to the audience here, and it's like, you know how to do this. So a lot more of mine lately have been more fade to black, because I just feel like let the reader kind of fill in the blanks there, and determine what's going on, and the intimacy is to me more important than who's doing what to who.
Right.
Mhm.
B, How about you?
Well, some books seem to end up with steamier scenes in them, but it's because the characters, that's something that's important at that moment, or it's not in the book. There's then whoever's having the emotional reaction to what they're doing is the one whose perspective that I write it from. And if there's not some emotional reaction to it, then it doesn't go in the book, because I really don't write erotica per se. I don't have any issue with it, and certainly lots of people love to read it. But it's like kind of what Allie said. At a certain point, if it starts to feel you're writing a how-to manual, you've lost the spark in there somewhere. You got to go back to the, to the slow looks and the collar tugs and the, whatever. So, that's the burn part there. So, it just kind of depends on what the story calls for. I had somebody tell me keeping secrets, my gosh, all they do is fool around. I'm like, well, they're the new romance. That's what happens.
Annette, one time in the past when we were talking about this same topic, she was joking around, and I'm sure, about research and actually figuring out if this could be done or this could be done. Is it physically possible? So I always think about that when I begin writing this section. Is it something that's really possible to do, or
That's when you do the physical research. That's when you tell your wife or whomever, you go, hey, could you move your arm this way and let me see
if I can do this. Oh God, my lumbago. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I really reach
oh my
that?
God. Yeah. My back. I pull out my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Moving from sex, let's talk food, Southern food. So, Allie, you are definitely known for being a person who loves to put food in your books, and there's often Southern foods, and you've done recipes.
Yeah. Food in the South is like a religion.
Yeah.
You celebrate everything from birth to death with food. Family dinners used to be a huge thing, community dinners, church dinners, those kind of things. And you meet and greet around food. You have a lot of competitions in the South. There's a line in Holy Water about you don't, mess up anybody's corningware or send it to somebody else. So whenever you're having a get together and you have casseroles, you better pull out that roll of masking tape and put out whose name that dish belongs to, because it is that important. And it's something that we all take pride in. I think there's some extremely creative cooks in the South. I love using a lot of my dad's recipes in my stories, and I've included some of those in there. His hush puppies and the Alabama white sauce for barbecue sauce, that kind of stuff. And it's a hit and miss. Some of the readers really, really love it and say, hey, tell me a little bit more on how to cook this. I had a guy from England wanting to know what was a Boston butt and how did I cook it, because it smelled so good in the book.
Right.
It's that kind of stuff. And then you got other people that just flip through it because they don't want to read about food or eating. But it's critical to the South.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the culture just as much as I mean, that meat and three, what's going to be on that paper, and people expect it to be there. And the big arguments about which sauce is better, North Carolina mustard, or if it's this vinegar base, and they'll come to a knife fight over it. Sometimes they can be passionate.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm a horrible cook, so I don't try to really do much with that. But well, if it's on the Betty Crocker cookbook, I can make it. But that's pretty.
Well, it's definitely something that I can relate to, not because I'm from the South, because Midwest, North, whatever, but because of my Italian heritage. I mean, in Italian families, same thing. Food is very, very important. Food is love. Food is absolutely love. That's how you show you love somebody. You cook for them.
Right. And, when I was growing up, 60s and 70s, supper time was huge, because that's when everybody sat around the table. You didn't have all the devices and technology that we do today. And you talked about your day and what was going on, and what you did in school or what you did at work, and Sunday dinner at grandma's, you better be on time or else you're not gonna get that fried chicken or pot roast because it's gonna be gone. So it's that kind of stuff that triggers me back to memories of growing up in the South and doing this and doing that.
Mhm.
Okay, research. How much research do you do?
I do
Or-
mountains of research. It turns out I don't know nearly as much as I think I do about most things, and I get to getting right along, and I'm like, did that car have a hatchback or trunk?
Yeah.
Because somebody, I mean, I'm a car person, somebody else is going to be too, and they're going to find this, they're going to go, well, that ain't right.
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on the setting of the story, and do you really know the area? Do you know the people? Do you know the activities that are going on? So it's kind of scary sometimes. I think if anybody really looked at our browsers and saw some of the stuff that we were researching, they might put us on an FBI list somewhere. Especially when you're talking about serial killers or terrorists or something like that. It's like
Right.
leads to some interesting advertisements on Facebook. That's for sure.
absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm getting all these, and sometimes it's cool because I've been looking up something I want, and then I'm like, oh, look, all these things about RV stuff. I loved it. Why am I getting it? Oh, I know why.
Yep. Yep. That's true. That's very true. I started getting some very interesting ads when I did some research. Yeah.
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 And we've got to blame it on the research anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, that's right. Damn straight.
Okay. What else would you like to share before we close things off? Both of you.
Well, I just like to thank McGee for joining us today. I love the book. I love your writing. I love your sense of humor, and I hope you'll continue to write some more Southern books because I really look forward to it. Annette, get busy, girl, and finish out that new series. I'm trying to finish off Cast Iron, so got a busy summer ahead of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And in between traveling with everything else. Well, I guess we've lived here 29 years. It'll be our 30th anniversary is coming up next week, and 29 of those years have been in South Carolina. I think I have to live here another 30 before I can say I'm from here. But I was born in Virginia, for goodness sake. I just I don't know, and it's just because you talk slow doesn't mean you think slow. I guess that'd be my main point. And I did have a good friend of mine. Well, when we moved, most of our friends were also transplants because people who were from the South had had the same friends since they were in kindergarten, and they didn't need new friends, really. I mean, it wasn't a judgment, it just is. And one day, one of the ladies who was from here, like 40 generations deep or something, says, I don't know why Yankees don't like Southerners. And I said, well, what do you mean? She says, well, y'all think we're stupid. I said, no, you have to understand the only Southerners any Yankees ever met are the ones that moved north to work in the car plants. They didn't come for money. They didn't have a job. And they weren't very well educated, and they weren't a very good representation of your culture. I'm just saying. So when they get down here, there's certain, everybody has stereotypes and biases and whatever. But probably my favorite initial story that really told me this is where I should be is I was driving to Lowe's, and the topper on my pickup truck come off. I had gotten lazy. I always had those clamps, with the blocks, and I took it off and on a couple times. I'm like, I'm just gonna put some zip ties on here. That was a tremendously poor decision, I might add. But I was driving out of this corner, and a flat truck come by, and the breeze just blew it right off of my truck, and I pulled over. I'm like, son of a, how am I gonna get this thing back on? 2 seconds later, 4 trucks had stopped. 3 guys had the topper, and one was already whipping out the zip ties to put it back on for me. And I don't, I'm not so great at that Scarlett O'Hara damsel in distress thing. And I certainly wasn't wearing a little hoochie mama outfit or anything, but that's just how folks are. If you need help, they'll help you. They'll just help you. And they might not. And I guess if we kind of get back to the bottom, we agree on a lot more than we disagree on. And we have to kind of remember sometimes we would all
the politicians are giving y'all a a bad name because I love Southerners, and I think
They really are.
Yeah, the politics. Yeah, well, you know, when my governor talked about you wouldn't be able to find a Democrat without using dogs, everybody who watched any of the 60s at all just felt their heart freeze in their chest thinking about him talking about that, because immediately the imagery of dogs chasing civil rights activists popped into my, and I thought, how dare you?
Yeah.
But you know, it's out there, and I think that was the tricky thing for me in writing my book, was to have those interactions with her family that were from those backgrounds and beliefs, and how do they, you know, traverse that gap to, you know, meet in the middle. And you know, I had some of my students, one guy came in, he says, yeah, my grandpa was a grad dragon, and I'm thinking, like, used to be. He's like, no, now. And I'm like, note to self.
Okay.
Note to self.
All
You know,
right.
so
Whoops.
you know, yeah, so you know, you just kind of think certain things are you know, gone, and they're certainly not.
Now,
All righty. Well, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, which I'll post this, and subscribe, please. And next month, we're sure on the exact topic, but we have an affinity author who is highlighting her book. And do you know the title of that, Allie? It's KB.
if you hadn't asked me, I could have told you.
Yeah. Okay.
I think beauty is in the title, but that's the only thing that comes to mind.
So we'll let you know at the podcast what the topic will be. So to be determined. And then in August, I haven't asked for the guest, although I have an idea of a special guest for us in August, but we'll be talking about spy thrillers in August. So
Nice.
that'll be fun.
Well, thank you for sharing your space with me, ladies. It was fun to visit with you, and I wish you luck with your podcast. So where can people find your podcast? Where can they find you?
AAA podcast, AAA Storytelling Podcast, and I will be posting all over Facebook links to that, and we'll do two. I will edit this and make a short version, because I know there are some people who have tiny attention spans like me. And then there will be the full version that will give all of what we've been chatting about. So both versions will be available on the YouTube channel, and I will post those, also those videos on Facebook. So lots of opportunities for people to view those. Anybody who makes a comment, we will try to do a drawing if we get enough comments to draw from. And
Right. And I'll be happy to throw in a book or two as well. So if you're going to be at GCLS, I'll see these ladies there in a few weeks.
Awesome.
So come find us.
Yeah.
We will or will not have any moonshine.
On the road again. We can't wait to get